everybody, thank you so much for watching. It is so good to see you all again. And if you're new here, then a very warm Mel's Yarniverse welcome to you. It's been a while since we've done a crochet thrift flip, so today I'm really excited because I'm going to take this gorgeous crochet blanket and turn it into this amazing granny square top. Pretty cool, huh? Stick around and I'll show you how to make one. Okay, so before we get started, let's have a closer look at the details. So this particular blanket has 49 squares in total and each square measures 5.5 inches. So if you're crocheting along at home to make this same top, you just make sure that you measure your granny square so you know basically how big your granny square is, and then you can work out from that what size panel you need and how many squares you're going to need. For me personally, based on my measurements, I'm going to need 45 squares in total, plus possibly 2 half square motifs. So I'll just talk you through that. So the basic structure for this is a 5x4 panel for the back. We've got 2 squares over here and over here for the sleeves. So those are the back of the sleeves. And then in the front, we've got exact same 5x4 panel with a couple of squares taken out here to make the neckline. We've then got the front of the sleeve, so 2 squares here and 2 squares here. So by adding all of that up, we need the 5x4 panel, which is 20 squares. We need 8 squares for both the sleeves. We then need 17 squares for the front panel with the 2 half motifs added. Now that's something I'm going to look at a little bit later on when I can actually try on the project. Whether or not I need those half motifs or not, I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm just going to see how it all feels and how it fits once it's structured. And then we can take a closer look at whether or not I need those extra half motifs in place or whether or not the neckline itself is okay as is. So we'll look at that a little bit later on. So I know I'm going to need 45 squares total and then possibly the 2 half squares. And because this blanket has 49 squares, I should be good to go. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is to remove the outer border of these 2 rows of granny stitch. Now this yarn doesn't get thrown away. Anybody who's watched any of my crochet thrift flips know that I absolutely love reusing this yarn. This will go back into joining the panels together, any extra stitching that needs to be done. Sometimes I use it for edging and borders or any kind of ribbing that we might need. Not sure if I'm including ribbing with this one, but it will still come in handy nonetheless. So we're going to start by removing those borders, and then the next step will be to unstitch these squares, hopefully in the shape of the panel that I'm looking for. So we need a 5x4 panel for the back, and that's what I'll start on first. But before I can do that, I've got to remove the edging. Wish me luck, guys. Hello. So unfortunately, I had to have a bit of a break from filming because I caught the dreaded flu. I don't know if you can tell by the sound of my voice, I'm not 100% over it, but I just had to come back and finish this project. I was so looking forward to it, and I am so thrilled to be able to get back into it. Before we get back into it, though, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the beautiful well wishes and all the kind words that you posted and sent to me. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. It really cheered me up and made my day when I was feeling pretty miserable. So thank you very much for that. All right, so where are we up to? Well, I've separated all the edging from the blanket and I've been able to salvage quite a bit of yarn, so I'm really happy about that. The next step is to separate the blanket into the different panels that we need. So we need a back panel, a front panel, some sleeves, and some individual squares for the shoulders. So I'm about to start separating that now, but before we do that, make sure you've got a nice warm cuppa. Oh, it's liquid gold, I tell you. Oh. All right, now let's get started. Okay, so I've got both my front panel and my back panel separated. It did take a bit of time because the construction of this blanket was so well done. It just took a bit longer than I was expecting to pick it apart. So my next step is just to go through these panels, just secure any loose ends or any loose threads that may have come loose while I was separating the different squares, make sure that everything looks okay. I did have a couple of issues with two different granny squares. In one granny square, the acrylic thread that was actually joining the squares had gone through the stitches of a square. So when I pulled the thread out, it actually split the acrylic that was holding the stitch together. And then the stitch came undone, which then started to unravel one of the squares. So I'll have to go back and fix that. And there was also another granny square that unfortunately, when I was clipping the yarn that was holding the squares together, I actually snipped part of the stitch and that became unraveled as well. So I'll have to go back and fix that, unfortunately. There's also a few ends I need to weave in, so I'll get that done. And then the next step will be to look for the sleeves and the two squares for the shoulders. And then I'll be good to start piecing it all together. So next step is to do some repairs and then we'll keep going from there. I just have to say, it just occurred to me while I was sitting here separating all of these beautiful granny squares, just how versatile a granny square can be. And I don't just mean in terms of design. I mean, there are literally thousands of designs for granny squares out there these days. They are absolutely beautiful and so different. It's just fantastic. But also in terms of the colours that you can use. I mean, if you find a blanket somewhere, maybe in a thrift store, maybe you've got one stored away that you haven't used for a while, you take it out, you have a good look at it, and you're just not thrilled with the overall colour of it. Maybe it doesn't fit the colour aesthetic in your home. Maybe you find a thrifted blanket and it's in really good condition and most of the squares look fantastic, but you don't like the main primary colour that they've used. All you need to do is frog that final row and replace it with a colour that you do like, and all of a sudden, the whole blanket looks completely different. It's just incredible. Lucky for me, I am thrilled with the colour of these particular squares, so I don't need to change too much at all. But if I didn't like them, all I'd have to do is frog that final row and replace it with another colour that I do like, and it would change the entire look of the project. Isn't that amazing? Just brilliant. I just love granny squares. Just thought I would share that with you. So you can see here that unfortunately, when I snipped the thread of the panel for the back, unfortunately I clipped one of the stitches in this particular granny square. So what that means is I'm going to have to use some of the salvage thread that I've got and just finish off this row here, this part of the row, and then I'll have to slip stitch into here and then re-weave these ends in. There's quite a few here. I'm too scared to cut any of them off in case the whole thing is holding this particular row together. If I really wanted to, I could cut that off and just frog the whole row and do the whole row, but I really don't want to do that. I want to keep as much of the original creator's project intact as I can. So I'm just going to recrochet along here and then slip stitch into here and then weave the ends in just to salvage this square. I'm going to put a stitch marker in this for now and I'll come back to that later. I just want to continue separating the panels for now and then I'll come back and fix that later. But I just thought I'd let you know that it is quite easy If for some reason you've accidentally snipped a stitch and you now have to salvage it, it's quite easy to do that, and this is one way to get that done. And then that's complete and all fixed up, and that granny square's all fixed like nothing ever happened. Okay, so I've been able to separate my sleeves, but I'm just having a look at the size of the squares and I don't think they're going to be big enough. So originally what I wanted to do was just have little capped sleeves on the side. So I was only going to have 2 squares in front and 2 squares in the back. But I'm really self-conscious about my upper arms. They're a little larger than I like. So I think I'm going to turn them into 4 square sleeves, so have 4 in front and 4 in the back. Now, if I've done my math correctly, then that means I will be 4 squares short. So I'm going to have to make some of my own granny squares to join into this project. Which means I'm going to have a bit of a dig through my spare yarn stash and see what I can come up with. Fingers crossed I can find some good colours to blend in with the rest of this blanket. Look at all of these amazing colours I've found in my stash. Oh, look at them all. They're just beautiful. We've got some rainbow. We've got some gorgeous blues here. We've got some purples, a couple of gorgeous variegated colours here, a bright yellow. There's some bright red over here. Oh, these are going to be gorgeous. And this particular colour right here, let me show the other camera. This one right here. I think I'm going to use this to edge my top once it's fully completed. I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough of the salvaged yarn from the blanket left to do the edging. I was just thinking of probably doing maybe 2 or 3 rows of single crochet just to give it a bit of a finished look. And without having the salvaged yarn to use, because now I'm going to have to use it to edge these granny squares, I was a little bit concerned that I'd run out of yarn. So I found this particular colour here, which I think really complements the salvaged yarn. Let's have a look at that. I think they work together really well. I think that's really pretty. So I'm probably going to do the edging or the single crochet edge around the top in this colour. And hopefully I have enough of the salvaged yarn to complete these granny squares. All right, let's get started. First one's done. 3 more to go. So I'm pretty happy with how these grannies turned out. I think they blend in with the rest of the blanket quite well. And I will share with you my terrible, terrible shame. I have to weave in all the ends before I can keep going. I probably should have done it while I was making them, but I was just so excited. All right, let's weave these ends in and then we'll keep going. Okay, and there we have it. So my 4 grannies are all done with all of their ends woven in. Yay me. All right, so what's the next step? So my next step is to finish off the sleeve. So I need to pick 2 of these squares to join the sleeve panel, and then I'll have both sleeves ready to go. I'll have to pick 2 of these to be my shoulder squares and join those to the front panel, so the top of the front. So I'll have the front panel along here, and I'll need the 2 shoulders here. So I'll need to join those, and then I can start piecing the 2 sleeve panels to the front and back panels and actually bring this top together. So let's keep going with the sleeves. Okay, so my gorgeous little 6 panel or 6 square panel for my sleeves are now finished. So what will happen with these, I'll turn that over like that. So this will be the front of my sleeve, and the other side will of course be the back. So now I just need to join this second sleeve to the front and back panels. I've got one more job left. I need to attach the 2 squares for my shoulders to the front panel, and then I'm ready to start assembling everything. So one last sewing job to go. I forget how much sewing there is in these thrift flips. Like I just forget, and I just go, yay, Granny Square project, let's do it. And then I realize exactly how much sewing is involved. For a crocheter to be doing this much sewing, not a fan. But that's okay. It's all part of the process, isn't it? All right, so I'll get those 2 squares joined and then we'll start assembling panels. So now I'm getting really excited. Okay, so here's my front panel. It's all connected. It all looks okay, all nice and secure. I'm pretty happy with it. So what I'll be doing, I'll just pull this down, is essentially adding my 2 leftover granny squares to the top here on either side of the panel. So I'm just connecting them along here. So I'll be seaming them along these 2 seams here, and those will be my shoulders for my front. So this will basically be my neckline. So hopefully you can see that. And I'll have these 2 squares on the top here. So these will be my shoulders, which means that once they're attached, grab my sleeve. My sleeve will then attach to this side here, so that'll be seamed down there, and that'll be the front, and then the back will be seamed along the back of the back panel. So that will be one sleeve, and then I'll do the exact same thing on the other side of the panel. So hopefully you're getting a clear picture of what I'm doing. My apologies if it's not quite clear. The only other way I can show you, here we go. Okay, so what I'm doing at the moment is attaching these little squares here. These squares here. So I'm attaching that and that to the front panel. And I've got these little half motifs here. I don't know whether I'll make those. Once I've got the 2 shoulders attached, I'll have a closer look. And now my sleeves are going to look like that. So that's technically what we're trying to make today. Fingers crossed, we're not too far from the end now, which is great. Okay, so I have my 2 shoulders on now. So this is what the front panel is looking like now. I'm actually starting to wonder if it might be a little big. So what I'm going to do is grab all my panels, I'm going to grab some stitch markers, and I'm going to join it all together and then try it on and see what I think. Not sure about this one. We'll see. Let's grab some stitch markers and see what we think. Did I do it? Stitch markers did not want to hold this. Let me try that again. Okay, new plan. Let's do it by math. All right, so from armpit to armpit, my top is measuring 26 inches. So let me grab my jumper I was just wearing. Lay that out. And let's measure again. Sleeves are in the same spot. And the armpits are laying in the same spot. Now let's measure my jumper from armpit to armpit. So from armpit to armpit, this is measuring 27.5 inches. So, in theory, I was thinking that this might be too big. But if this is 25, what did I say, 25 or 26? I think 26. Yep, 26 inches. This is 26 inches and this is 27.5. This is very stretchy. It's got a lot of give. So 26 inches should be okay. And the sleeves are in the right spots. They're in the same size. So the sleeves at the top here might be a little big. They may be a little loose. But I'm thinking maybe this top bit here, this is going to be the neckline here. This section may be a little loose, but the sleeves and the fit should work well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it on faith, stitch up the sides, the front and back panel, add the sleeves, and see how I go. Actually, what I might do is leave the sleeves off for now, stitch up the sides of the front and back panel, and stitch the shoulders. Or maybe just stitch the sides, front and back, move that out of the way. So I'm going to stitch up the sides so I know that the front and back fit. And then I might just use stitch markers to hold the shoulders in place. And then I'll try this on without the sleeves attached and see what that looks like. All right, new plan. Got it. Okay, so this is it with the sides seamed and this side seamed up to the armpit. And I'm really happy with the fit down here. It fits nice and comfortably. It doesn't really, cling to my tummy or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. So as you can see, the issue is going to be the neckline along here. So these are just being held in place with stitch markers at the moment, so they're not completely attached. And what I'm thinking is, I think what might fit better is if I replace this neckline, put 3 more squares in here and make it sit like a granny square jumper or sweater. I'll put a picture of the one I made recently just up on screen so you can see what I mean. I think it would be better to bring the neckline back up to the same as the back and then just join the seams along the shoulder to give me just a shallow neckline up here so that this sits a little bit flatter and a bit more comfortably. And then for the sleeves, instead of doing the four sleeves like I was going to, which would then end up giving me something like a 3/4 length sleeve, which is still quite nice, I think what I might do is go back to that 2 square. So then I've still got short sleeves and it will look more like a granny square tee, I guess. I think that's going to fit much better. I hope you can envision what I'm talking about. It all sounds a bit strange at the moment. So basically what I would do is separate this sleeve panel. Instead of having it in half like that and having this be the front and that be the back, I would separate it lengthwise. So I've only got half of it and have half in front, half in the back, like that. So it does make sense and I hope it's going to look really good. I think it's going to sit a lot better in front. Unfortunately, if I were to take a column out and then just join these squares here and pull it across, it would be too tight and it would really cling. I don't want it to do that. I'd rather have a loose fitting, oversized feel to it than one that's way too small. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I think to salvage it, I'm going to put 3 squares across here, connect it all to the front and have a front panel and a back panel that are the same size. seam it along the shoulder to give me just a shallow neckline across the top, and then add smaller sleeves to the side to finish off the T look. All right, time to make some more squares. Or to separate the ones I already have in the sleeves and see which ones fit best across the front and which ones will look great for sleeves. So we can do this, it's going to be great. Okay, so I've got 3 squares here. As you can see, 2 are joined and one's on its own. So what I essentially need to do is seam along here and then along here for all 3 and here to join these. And then this will finish off my front panel. Then along the top, I'll seam probably from here to here, so leave myself enough space for my head and neck, and then seam across the top here, and this will be my shoulders, and this will be the rest of my front panel. So I'll get this done next, and then we'll attach the sleeves, and then hopefully we'll be done. Well, I have quite an evening of sewing in store for me. I was able to separate the sleeve panels into the 2 separate bits. So once again, I'll have the one square on this side and the one on the other side. But as you can see, in separating them, I've pulled apart the individual squares. Instead of being able to just separate the panel, it started separating the squares. So I'm going to have to secure all of those, and same with the other side, as well as repairing this particular granny square here. The acrylic snapped and it started to unravel, so I'll have to fix that as well. So I will start working on those, and I will see you tomorrow to get this thing finally finished. All right, so it's the next day, and as you can see, I've attached the 3 squares across the top here, and I've seamed the shoulders, and already I am much happier with this fit. You can see the sides there, and I'll show you the back as well. And already I am loving this. It is so comfortable, and I am just loving the fit too. I think it's great. But I do want to finish the sleeves. So as sweet as they look as like little cap sleeves there, I just want a little bit more length. So last night I finished the stitching of the sleeve panels. So this one here and this one here, they're all complete and ready to go. So all I have left to do is to attach these sleeves on either side here and on the other side, and I'll be done. I'm really loving this. I think it's so comfortable and so colourful. It's gorgeous. All right, guys, one more thing left and then we're done. If you haven't already gotten a cup of tea, then maybe you should. If you're still with me, then you've definitely earned a cuppa. So go put the kettle on and I'll get these sleeves attached. Okay, so let's get started on those sleeves. So what you're looking at is the side of my top. So this is the side seam along here, and this is the armhole over here. So we're going to attach the sleeve along this side, and then we're going to flip it over and attach the other side and just join it off at the bottom in the armpit there. And then that'll be one sleeve attached. So almost done. So what I'll be doing is using the mattress stitch to join them, which is essentially the stitch that's been used most of the way through this project. So I want to continue that as well. So I'll be joining here and going along here. So let's get started. Okay, last few stitches to weave this in. Okay, cut that off. Turn that back in. Oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited. Oh, this is looking so good. I need to try it on again. What do you think, guys? It's all finished. Let me get my hair out of the way for you. I love it. I'm so happy. I should have just made this design right from the very beginning. But you know what? I would never have come to this design if I hadn't have tried the other way first. So I'm glad I tried it. I'm glad I tried it on. That definitely helped. But in terms of the fit, in terms of the size and the shaping, I really like it. Finally got the sleeves attached. I'm happy with that length too. I feel really comfortable in this, and I also feel like I could wear this with just a singlet underneath. I can wear it with long sleeve tops. I can even wear it with a nice white blouse. So have a blouse underneath. I like that it's got the cropped bottom here. I wouldn't want it any shorter, but that's the thing with these granny square projects. If you did want them shorter, you could just cut a row of squares off the bottom and have a little crop top. You could have a singlet instead of the sleeve tee. I like the tee for this particular look. I think it works well. I like the sleeve length. I think that finishes it. But if I didn't want that, I could just take the sleeves off and have just a vest. I could make it longer in the back and make it look more like a tunic just by adding another couple of rows of squares. They're just so adaptable. I'm really happy. I really love it. What do you think? So there you have it, guys. That's how you make a granny square tee top. Isn't it awesome? And so much fun. Granny squares are just so versatile. This whole project has changed looks from the very beginning right the way through. And that all came from trying it on, which is definitely a very important step. Don't miss that. I hadn't noticed that the design that I originally came up with was just going to be a little too wide and a little too low, and it just didn't sit right. When I tried it on, it forced me to notice that the sizes weren't going to work and that the squares, even though the maths all checked out, it just didn't look right when I put it on. So it forced me to just adapt and do what I could with the squares that I had. And I'm so glad that it did because I'm really happy with the results. I love how versatile this is. I love that I can extend the sleeves by adding more squares. I can extend the length of the top by adding more squares. If I want it to be more of a crop top, I can remove a couple of rows from the front and it would be an even smaller crop top. I love that I could turn it into a singlet or a vest. It's just so versatile. I just love it. I love granny squares for that exact reason. And because there are so many designs out there, you don't have to make a top like this using just a basic granny square. You could use one of the thousands of designs that's out there. I can actually see this working up beautifully if you use something like a willow granny square. Maybe use a cotton or a cotton and acrylic so it's nice and light and has a bit of drape to it. That would look absolutely gorgeous. But for me, this was all about taking a thrifted blanket and turning it into something new. And I think I hit the mark on that one. I really, really love it. And I hope the original creator, if you're out there and you see this, firstly, thank you so much for making such a beautiful blanket to begin with. Your work is incredible, and I hope that you can appreciate what I've done with it because I absolutely love it. I think it's great. It's really comfortable, and I just adore that I feel like I'm getting wrapped up in a blanket each time I wear this. It's just lovely. So once again, thank you so much for all of your hard work, and I hope that you enjoy what I've been able to do with it. So one thing to mention is that I haven't done any edging on this piece yet. I haven't decided whether or not it needs it. Normally I do an edging just to tidy the edges up and just make it look nice and neat, but I really don't think it needs it at this point. Chances are, though, I'm probably going to change my mind about that in about a day or two. So don't be surprised if you see a post up on the YouTube community tab just saying, okay, I've done the ribbing or I've done the edging. I suspect I'll probably just do a row of single crochet. I really don't want to make the piece any heavier. And by By heavy, I mean I don't want there to be weight in the piece. I like it to be light. I like that it's nice and loose and it's kind of oversized and I've got a bit of room in it. I don't really want to drag it down by adding weight to it, like a thick ribbing or anything along the bottom. So that definitely won't be happening. If I do decide to edge it, it will just be quite simply one row of single crochet just around the edges just to make it look nice and neat. I do have enough of the salvaged yarn to complete that, I hope. Fingers crossed, otherwise it'll be a terrible game of yarn chicken to get it done. In which case, that's probably when I'll frog it and say, you know what, it looked fine anyway, it doesn't really need it, it'll be fine. But if I do put that edging on, I'll definitely put up a post in the community tab so you can all see what I did. Well, if you've made it this far, then thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in and sit down and join me on one of my crochet adventures. It really does mean the world to me. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if this is a project that you would consider trying for yourself. Maybe you've got some old blankets laying around that you're not quite sure what to do with. Maybe you could turn them into something like this. Have you got any suggestions for anything else I could have done with the blanket or something you might like to see me make in the future? By all means, let me know in the comments because I love reading them. There's always so much happening in the comments section on this channel and I just love that. A special thank you goes out to all of my channel members. It's because of your support that I'm able to keep this channel going and to allow me to do the things that I do. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. To everybody else that's liked or commented on a video, perhaps maybe you've shared one of my videos with one of your friends, thank you again for all of your support. It really does mean the world to me and it helps me to keep this channel going and it lets me know what sort of content you'd like to see on the channel. So thank you so much for that. All right, guys, take care of each other and take care of yourselves because you absolutely do deserve it. Thank you so much and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.